before the world ever believes in you, you have to believe in yourself. Think about that for a second. Every dream that was ever realized, every obstacle that was ever overcome, every record that was ever broken started with one thing. Someone, somewhere deciding I can. Not because they had all the answers, not because the path was clear, but because deep down they carried something more powerful than approval, more powerful than talent, and even more powerful than luck. They carried self-belief. And here's the truth most people don't talk about. Self-belief is not a luxury. It's not something reserved for the gifted or the lucky. It's a superpower every single one of us has access to if we choose to use it. Today, I want to show you how this invisible force, the one that lives quietly inside your mind, can become your loudest weapon. Because once you believe in yourself, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, you can't do. You know, a lot of people think success starts with talent, or education, or money, or connections. And sure, those things help, but they're not the foundation. They're not the root. Because I've met people with all of that, brilliant minds, amazing resources, huge networks, and they still fail over and over. Why? Because deep down, they don't believe they can win. They don't believe they deserve to win. That's the real gap. What separates the people who do from the people who wish isn't luck. It's not even skill. It's self-belief. The absolute unshakable conviction that you can, even when everything around you says you can't. That's the difference maker. That's the root of everything. I've seen it in people who come from nothing, people who had every reason to quit, every excuse to settle, and they didn't. Because somewhere inside they made a decision. They said, I'm not backing down. I'm not waiting for someone to choose me. I'm choosing myself. And that decision right there is the start of everything. See, self-belief isn't about arrogance. It's not pretending you have it all figured out. It's not walking into a room and acting like you're better than everyone. No. It's quieter than that, more honest than that. Self-belief is about knowing that no matter what happens, no matter how hard it gets, you'll find a way. That no challenge is bigger than your will. That your story is not finished yet. And that kind of belief, it's not handed to you. No one can give it to you. You have to build it. You build it by keeping promises to yourself. You build it by doing hard things. You build it every time you get knocked down and decide, I'm getting back up. That's where it comes from. From the moments nobody sees, the little wins, the times you showed up for yourself even when nobody was clapping, especially when nobody was clapping. That's where the power grows. Because let me tell you, if you're waiting for the world to believe in you first, you're going to be waiting forever. People don't see what's possible for you until you show them, until you show yourself. And that shift, that moment where you stop outsourcing your worth and take it back, that's when everything starts to move. That's when momentum kicks in. Because the truth is, your brain is always listening to what you say to yourself, always. If you keep saying, I'm not enough, I'm not ready, I'm not good at this, your brain will find every reason to prove it true. But the moment you start saying, I've got this, I'll figure it out, I was built for this, everything begins to change. Not overnight, but it shifts. The needle moves. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be doubts. There will. Everyone feels them. But self-belief isn't the absence of doubt. It's the decision to move anyway. It's saying, yeah, I hear the fear. I hear the voice in my head, but it doesn't run the show. That's self-belief. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be braver than your excuses. I've worked with athletes, entrepreneurs, leaders, single moms, people from every walk of life. And the one thing they all had in common wasn't that they had everything figured out. It was that they backed themselves when it mattered, when it was hard, when it was messy, when it didn't make sense. They didn't wait for permission, they gave it to themselves. And I want that for you. Because when you believe in yourself, it doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how you act, It changes the choices you make, the risks you take, the conversations you're willing to have, the dreams you're bold enough to chase. It changes your energy, and energy is everything. You walk differently, you speak differently, you attract different people. You stop settling, you stop shrinking, you stop pretending to be smaller than you are just to fit into spaces that were never built for you. That's what self-belief does. It's not magic. It's muscle. And you build it every time you decide not to quit. Every time you take one more step. Every time you choose growth over comfort. That's how you become unstoppable. That's how you turn self-belief into your greatest superpower. Because once you believe in yourself, the world has no choice but to catch up. Every superpower has an origin story. Think about it. Every hero you've ever heard of, whether in movies, books, or real life, didn't start off powerful. They didn't wake up one day with unshakable confidence or laser-sharp clarity. No, it came from something they went through, some moment, some turning point where life pushed them to the edge, and they had to decide, am I going to break or am I going to rise? That's where self-belief begins. Not in comfort, not in perfection, but in pressure, in struggle, in real life, boots on the ground, what the hell do I do now moments. So if you've been through something, if you've failed, if you've been rejected, if you've had your back against the wall, you're not broken and you're not behind. You're in your origin story. You're in the exact place where your self-belief starts getting built. See, most people want the confidence without the climb. They want to feel strong before they lift anything heavy. But that's not how this works. You don't get the power first. You get the opportunity to grow it through pain, through persistence, through pushing through when nobody's watching. Self-belief doesn't just show up one day and introduce itself like, hey, I'm here to help now. No, it's forged. It's carved out of choices. It's born when you go through things and realize, I survived that. Or even better, I grew from that. You've got to own your story, even the messy parts, especially the messy parts. Because that's where the strength lives. That's where your edge comes from. It's not the polished version of you that's impressive. It's the real you, the raw, gritty, scarred, seasoned version that's been through the fire and came out stronger. People forget that growth never happens on the mountaintop. It happens in the valley. It happens when things don't go your way, when you miss the shot, when they say no, when you feel invisible. That's the classroom. That's where you learn that belief isn't about guarantees, it's about grit. Think about the times you've leveled up in life. I'm not talking about the times things went smoothly. I'm talking about the moments where you had to dig deep. Maybe nobody even knew what you were going through, but you were in it. Fighting silently, trying to hold it together. Trying to move forward when everything in you said stop. That's what shaped you. That's where your power started to grow, right there in the silence. That's your origin story. And once you start seeing yourself that way, not as someone who's been through too much, but as someone who's learned from every inch of it, that's when things begin to shift. You stop feeling like a victim of your circumstances and start realizing you were being trained for something bigger. That pain, it gave you perspective. That setback, it taught you strategy. That rejection, it gave you redirection. Self-belief starts when you stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is this building in me? Because life is always doing one of two things. It's either blessing you or building you. And most of the time, it's building you before it blesses you. You want power? You want that deep internal fire that doesn't fade when things get tough? Then you've got to reframe how you see your past. Stop disqualifying yourself for what you've been through and start realizing that's your fuel. You didn't come this far to question whether you're worthy. You came this far to remember what you've already overcome, to own your evolution, to stop comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel and recognize your story is what makes you powerful. There's no one path, no single formula. Everyone's journey is different, but the one thing that's always true is that belief is built, not born. You build it every time you decide that your past doesn't get to define your future. You build it when you stop waiting for perfect conditions and start moving with what you've got. You build it when you stop asking for validation and start trusting your own voice. That's your power. That's your story. And nobody else can tell it the way you can. Because the moment you realize your struggles didn't weaken you, they woke you up, that's when the game changes. Fear. Let's talk about it. People act like fear is something we're supposed to eliminate, like the goal is to get rid of it. But here's the truth. Fear doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear just because you want it to. It's always going to be there whispering in the back of your mind asking, what if you fail? What if they laugh? What if you're not enough? You don't overcome fear by ignoring it. You overcome it by redefining it. And that's what self-belief does. It doesn't kill fear, it transforms it. It takes all that nervous energy, all that tension, and turns it into fuel, into power, into action. I've met so many people with big dreams, huge hearts, so much potential, but they never start. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't want it, but because fear convinces them to wait, to pause, to doubt. Fear whispers, play it safe. Don't speak up, don't stand out. And if you listen to that voice long enough, you start mistaking it for truth. But here's what I want you to know. Fear is not the enemy. The real enemy is inaction. The enemy is letting fear drive the car while your dreams sit in the back seat, buckled in, never going anywhere. When you believe in yourself, really believe, you don't become fearless, you become courageous. And courage doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you move forward anyway. It means you feel the fear, acknowledge it, and then say, thank you for your opinion, but I've got this. That shift is everything. Because self-belief gives fear a new job. It stops being the thing that holds you back and starts becoming the signal that you're getting close to something that matters. It tells you, pay attention. There's growth on the other side of this. Look, you can't grow inside your comfort zone. That's not where the magic happens. Growth lives right outside the edge of what feels safe. It's the moment your voice shakes, your hands sweat, and you're not sure if you can do it. But you take the step anyway, that's where transformation begins. And here's what's crazy. The moment you do the thing you were afraid of, you realize it wasn't nearly as big as it looked in your head. Fear magnifies everything. It makes the mountain look impossible. But self-belief shrinks it back down to size. It says, okay, maybe it's hard, but I'm harder. When you act in spite of fear, you rewire your brain. You teach it a new pattern. Every time you face a fear and move anyway, you send a signal, I'm not controlled by this anymore. And that's how momentum builds. That's how confidence grows. Not by thinking your way into belief, but by acting your way into it. You want to believe in yourself more? Start stacking wins. Small wins. Take the shot. Make the call. Say the thing. Step into the room. Every time you do, you're building proof. You're telling your mind, see, I can handle this. That's how belief compounds. And it's not about having all the answers. It's not about being the most qualified or the most experienced. It's about trusting that whatever comes up, you'll find a way. You don't have to have it all figured out to move. You just have to believe that you're capable of figuring it out as you go. Because the truth is, the people you look up to, the ones you think have it all together, they're scared too. They just don't let fear be the deciding factor. They feel it, but they act from belief. So what if you started doing that too? What if every time fear showed up, you saw it as confirmation that you're growing? What if instead of backing down, you leaned in? That's the power of self-belief. It flips the whole script. It turns fear into focus. It turns pressure into presence. It turns hesitation into movement. And the best part? It's already in you. You don't need to wait for some perfect day when fear magically disappears. That day doesn't exist. But this one does. This moment right here, this is where you decide. Because once you stop letting fear write your story and start letting belief drive your decisions, everything opens up. New energy, new confidence, new possibilities. Fear will always knock, but it's your belief that decides who answers. Self-belief doesn't just change you, it changes the people around you. It's not just personal power, it's contagious power. When you start showing up with that kind of inner certainty, something shifts in the room. People feel it. They might not even know what it is, but they feel the energy and it moves them. I've seen it happen over and over. One person changes their standard and suddenly the whole team rises. One person starts believing in what's possible and it creates a domino effect. That's the ripple. That's the impact you create, not by preaching, not by pushing, but by being. It's easy to forget how much influence we really have. We think we're just trying to keep ourselves afloat, trying to grow, trying to stay strong, and we don't even realize how many people are watching how we carry ourselves, how we handle pressure, how we bounce back from setbacks. And here's the wild part. Your breakthrough might be the thing that gives someone else permission to step into their own, because we're all wired for connection. We're inspired by realness, not perfection, not highlight reels, but by people who choose courage in the middle of chaos, by people who show us what's possible just by living it. You want to lift your family? Believe in yourself. You want your kids to dream bigger? Show them what belief looks like in action. Show them what it means to try, to fall, to get back up and not back down. You want your team, your community, your circle to rise? Start by refusing to shrink. Because when you own your power, you create space for others to own theirs. But here's the catch. Most people are waiting for someone else to go first, waiting for proof, waiting for the green light. What if you are the green light? What if the moment you stop hesitating and start standing tall, someone else decides they can too? That's how movements start. That's how cultures shift. Not always through big, loud gestures, but through quiet consistency, through showing up with belief day after day, through walking into a room and refusing to dim your light, not out of ego, but out of purpose. Because playing small doesn't serve the world. Playing small doesn't inspire your children. Playing small doesn't lift your team or heal your relationships. Belief does. And when you live from belief, when you make decisions from that place, when you communicate from that place, people feel safe around you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're anchored. And let me be real with you. There's a lot of noise out there. People second-guessing themselves, living by comparison, doubting every move. What we need more than ever is people who are grounded in something deeper. People who say, I may not have all the answers, but I know who I am and I'm going to show up fully. You become a mirror for others when you live like that. You give people a reflection of who they can be. Maybe someone's never seen real belief up close before. Maybe they've never had someone in their life who decided to break the pattern, shift the story, raise the bar, and now you're that person. Not because you said the right thing, but because you lived it. That's power. Self-belief becomes leadership the moment it leaves your body and begins to activate something in someone else. And that doesn't require a title. That doesn't require a mic or a platform. It just requires alignment, that what you believe and how you live are in sync. And when that's true, you don't have to force your influence. It happens naturally. So whether you realize it or not, you're planting seeds. Every conversation, every choice, every moment you decide not to give up, not to complain, not to fall into the pattern that's easy, you're leaving an imprint. People are watching. They may never tell you, they may never say it out loud, but your energy is speaking. Your belief is doing the talking. That's why this isn't just about you. Yes, it starts with you, but it doesn't stop there. Because the ripple keeps going. The people you impact, the confidence you spark, the momentum you create, it spreads, and it spreads fast. That's what happens when you believe in yourself. You don't just become better, you make everything around you better. Because one person's belief can awaken a whole room. And that person is you. Self-belief isn't something you turn on once and expect to run forever. It's not a light switch. It's a fire. And like any fire, if you don't feed it, it fades. That's the truth nobody wants to hear. People want to believe that once they feel confident, it'll stay. That once they break through once, they've made it. But that's not how real growth works. You don't build a superpower with a one-time burst. You build it through consistency, through discipline, through daily repetition, even on the days when you don't feel like it, especially on those days. Because here's what happens. The moment you start showing up for yourself consistently, your identity starts to shift. You stop being the person who tries and you become the person who does. You stop hoping and you start trusting. You trust your own word. You trust your own process. And that kind of trust, that kind of alignment, that's unshakable. It's easy to believe in yourself when things are going well, when the winds are coming, when the energy is high, when everything's flowing. But self-belief that only shows up when it's convenient isn't real belief. It's momentum disguised as certainty. The real test is what you do when it's hard, when it's quiet, when nobody's clapping, when you're tired and uncertain, and everything in your body says, take a break, skip today, do it tomorrow. That's when the real power gets built. That's when belief becomes identity. And don't confuse consistency with perfection. You're going to have off days. You're going to fall. That's part of the process. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being committed. It's about getting up one more time than you fall. It's about not letting one missed day turn into a missed week or a missed year or a missed life. I've seen people lose their fire, not because they didn't have it, but because they didn't protect it. They didn't nurture it. They thought the motivation would always be there. But motivation fades. It's inconsistent. What lasts is rhythm, discipline, a non-negotiable commitment to showing up no matter what. You've got to make belief a practice, a lifestyle, something that's built into how you move, how you speak, how you think. You've got to condition it just like a muscle. Every time you show up when you don't want to, every time you push past resistance, every time you keep going when nobody's watching, that's a rep. That's you stacking evidence. That's you saying, this is who I am now. Because belief isn't found, it's proven over and over again through your actions. You can't think your way into confidence. You act your way there. You earn it by doing the work when it's inconvenient. That's where it gets real. That's when your self-talk starts to change. That's when you stop negotiating with fear and start leading from strength. And the beautiful thing about consistency is that it compounds. At first, the results are invisible. You're showing up, doing the work, and it feels like nothing's moving. But behind the scenes, everything is changing. You're changing. And then one day, boom, you break through. People call it sudden success. But it's not sudden, it's just visible now. All that unseen effort, all those quiet choices, all those early mornings and late nights where you kept your promise to yourself, it all adds up. And when it clicks hard. That's when you realize you're not the same person you used to be. You've raised your standard, you've shifted your identity, you've turned belief into something that lives in your bones. That's how powerful this is. That's what consistency does. It takes something fragile, like a spark of confidence, and turns it into a fire no one can put out. And here's the deal. Nobody's going to do this for you. No one's coming to hand you this superpower. It's yours to build, yours to protect, yours to strengthen. And that's good news because it means you're not waiting on anything. You're not dependent on anyone else. You've already got everything you need. The question is, will you show up when it's boring, when it's tough, when it's slow? That's where belief becomes unstoppable. That's where the shift becomes permanent. Not in the breakthrough, but in the grind. Because true self-belief isn't built in the spotlight. It's forged in the dark, one consistent choice at a time. We talk a lot about potential. We say things like, they've got so much potential, or I know I'm capable of more. And we carry around this idea that potential is something that lives inside us, waiting for the right moment to show up. But potential doesn't activate itself. Potential is a locked door. And self-belief is the key. See, every one of us has something powerful inside, that gift, that fire, that edge. But most people never access it because they don't believe they're worthy of it. They don't believe they're ready. They don't believe they're enough, and so they wait. They wait for permission, for clarity, for perfect timing. And all that untapped greatness just sits there, dormant, wasted. You've got to stop waiting and start unlocking. Because that version of you, the one that's stronger, more alive, more aligned, it's already in you. It's not something you need to find. It's something you need to unleash. And that only happens when you stop doubting and start deciding. You decide to trust your voice. You decide to take the leap. You decide to show up for your life like you were built for something more because you were. That's the real power of self-belief. It doesn't give you anything new. It releases what's already there. You ever notice how people will say, oh, they really came out of their shell, like it's some surprise that greatness suddenly showed up. But it's not sudden, it's not a switch, it's not a miracle. It's the result of someone finally deciding to stop playing small and start living like they belong at the table. That's what belief does. It tears down the shell. It breaks the ceiling. It clears the space between who you are and who you're meant to be. I've seen people transform, not because they got new skills or more resources, but because they finally trusted what was already inside them. They stopped shrinking. They stopped apologizing. They stopped needing outside approval to start taking up space. And everything shifted. Your potential has never been the problem. The problem is how often you've doubted it, buried it, questioned it. You've told yourself stories that don't serve you. Stories that say, I'm not ready, or who am I to do this, or what if I fail? But the truth is, you're not afraid of failure, you're afraid of your own greatness. Because the moment you start believing in it, you've got no excuses left. It's easier to stay small when you don't believe, because then you don't have to risk anything, you don't have to stretch, you don't have to lead. But deep down, you know you're made for more. You feel it, and that's what belief does. It takes that feeling and turns it into action, into bold moves, into aligned decisions, into a life that reflects your power, not your doubt. You don't need someone to unlock your potential for you. You need to give yourself permission to stop holding back, permission to step into rooms you think you're not qualified for, permission to speak even when your voice shakes, permission to bet on yourself even when the odds look off. Because here's the truth. You're not waiting on your potential to be ready. Your potential is waiting on you to believe. And when you do, everything opens up. Ideas start flowing. Energy comes back. People respond to you differently. Opportunities appear. Why? Because belief puts you in motion. It aligns you. And when you're aligned, you move differently. You speak with conviction. You make decisions with clarity. You stop trying to fit in and start owning your place. That's what it means to unlock potential. Not chasing perfection, but choosing purpose. Not waiting for certainty, but leaning into courage. Every time you act from belief, you chip away at the limits you thought were real. And eventually, you look around and realize those limits were never real. They were just stories. Stories you outgrew the moment you believed something different. So here's the question. What's inside you right now that's been waiting to be unleashed? What gifts, what strengths, what voice, what vision have you been holding back, all because you weren't sure if you could own it? It's time, not someday, not next year, now. Because your potential is not what's possible, it's what becomes real the moment you believe